And welcome to another session of the APWASI Wine Buzz. It is with great pleasure that I'm going to introduce you today to our guest, Marinela Ardelean. She is an extraordinary woman, a wine expert, consultant, speaker, and author. And in this sea of wine experts, she stands out. Not only is she a wine consultant, but an extraordinary one because she is the wine consultant in Romania for the huge group Carrefour. In 2014, she wrote a spellbinding book called 50 Romanian Wines Meet 50 Italian Dishes. She is a well-known and recognized expert on Romanian wines and has written several books on that particular subject, the latest being in 2018, and I believe there is a new version coming out probably next year. She's a brand manager and also a global brand ambassador for certain brands. And furthermore, she is a well-known figure in the world of wine judging. Welcome to our show, Marinela.
Thank you so much, Clinton, for the beautiful introduction. I'm very happy to be here with you and your lovely community. So thank you again.
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, where are you located right now, Marinela?
I just wanted to say good evening from the north of Transylvania in Romania. So for this summer, I choose to be in Romania because after a very tough period of pandemic moments, let's say, I was not able to travel to Romania. I was blocked or stuck in Treviso and Venice for 1 year and a half, almost 2 years. So right now I'm happily in Romania, finally, let's say. Wow. So I mean, my base in Romania, I have 2 bases, one in Bucharest and one in Transylvania. Now I'm in the most warm place to be in terms of many things. I'm in Transylvania now.
Wonderful. That's wonderful news. So Marinela, how did you start your wine career?
I think that this is one of the most difficult questions, because the answer might change almost every time in a way, because I could say from the friends, because living in Italy for more than 20 years, it's impossible to do not be infected with the spirit of wine and the culture and pleasure and desire of knowing more and more and more. But I was, I was lucky enough to work for a family, accountants, which were in the wine industry. So first by curiosity, after by need, and after it was a challenge for me because I felt that I am not coming from a place in Romania where the wine was produced, because here are grappa or spirits mostly produced here. And I said that also as a foreign in a country would be a good way to learn about the country through the wine, through the food. So I started the sommelier course, and after I discovered that I so much enjoyed the knowledge which I were acquiring. So I've started to continue my studies, and I'm still studying in a way now.
I think we all are continually studying. As professionals involved in the wine business, I think every single bottle that we open reveals its own secrets. Now, having started in Italy, what has been the biggest influence in your career, Marinela?
Well, I think that being able to talk to the producers, which they have in their back so many generations, they were the most influent aspect in my wine industry, talking with the owners, with the producers, with the people that own the history. So they have in their blood somehow the wine culture. That was a huge influence in a way. And from them, I got the passion. So I got the way of speaking about wine without talking about wine. Through culture, through art, through values. For them, it's something so natural in Romania or in many other countries, might be an element, might be a drink, might be many other things, wine, but not as natural as I personally found it in Italy.
think what you've touched on there, Marinela, is the embodiment of what APWASI shares. You know, not only is wine about, oh, you know, the color, the pH, the acidity, the residual sugar, it's more the people, the culture, the food, the history, and the geography. So certainly there is an alignment of how you see wine in itself. Now, you are working in what I consider to be a challenging industry in many, many ways. Now, have you found it to be easier or harder to be a woman working in this industry?
Depends on the perspective, because, for example, in the 90s, at least in Romania, was not as easy as it is now for a woman being in the wine industry. That's for sure. In Italy, in France, in other countries, that's the gender is not anymore an issue in the wine industry. But for me, it was a kind of help, because I was challenged to learn more, to do more, because I felt at least in a minority community being a woman in the wine industry, especially 10 years ago. So for me, it was useful because it was difficult. I felt like it's more work to do from my side. So I think that for me was good. Now, for a woman being in the wine industry, especially globally, more and more that things are easier. We start to have competitions which are dedicated to women as a judge. So the women judges as well. Yes. Yes, like Sakura, like Femme in France, if I'm not wrong. So we start to have competitions which are dedicating attention to the women in the industry. And I think that the future would be more balanced as it is comparing with what we have now. I would rather avoid to say that there is a complementarity between men and women in terms of tasting, in terms of judging. But it's not wrong even saying that. Because, for example, men might be more technical, might be more rational. A woman might be more sensitive in sometimes also in smelling and tasting as well. So I think that a very good panel of judges should be created in a very balanced number of judges in terms of women and men. The future will be for definitely with more women in the wine industry. And especially because the wine industry needs more women in this field as well.
I would say that your sentiments are certainly echoed here. Now, Marinela, I'm going to go off on a tangent here. Now, you mentioned about the woman-only wine competitions. And then you mentioned aspects of how there's a sense of balance.
Yes.
And it's acknowledged that women are better tasters, wine tasters than men. Now, there's a recent surveys and trends that have gone through that the Generation X, these from 45 to 59, this particular group, they are one of the main drivers of purchasing of wines right now. But the millennials, when they consider a wine as a selection to purchase, it's not only, you know, perhaps the flavor. They're not interested that much in terms of grape varietals and pH. They want to know, what is the winery doing for the community? Are they assisting anything to help the earth? Are they considering diversity, social justice, equality? Now, there is more and more of a trend in the judging aspect. This is what they want. Do you see this developing into more mainstream wine judging? Because, you know, like the certain Michelin restaurants, they're starting to issue green stars now when the restaurants are using organic ingredients for the preparation of their foods. So my question is, how do you see the development of this? And do you think we will move towards green stars?
I definitely believe that. In terms of organic, in terms of biodynamic, I think that in 30, 50 years from now on, all the wines that we will drink will be organic. This is my belief, because in a way for a need, because we all are looking for sustainability, for natural, for respect and more love of our earth. And many details are like this are impacting our choice and indirectly the producers. But also because lots of producers, they are already doing organic, but they do not put on the label that their wines are organic. So we are learning to live with organic, the organic philosophy, because in a way, in the past, at least at the beginning, was more marketing, was more a way of communicating, and it was pulled back somehow. And now more and more, we are seeing a different approach in terms of thinking, in terms of acting. It's not only in terms of business, it's not only in terms of production, but in terms of way of doing things, way of acting and living. And going back to what you said, I definitely think that we will start to have more and more competitions dedicated to, for example, organic wines or biodynamic. For example, one of my favorite competition in the world is the Mundus Vini Biofact, which is in December in Germany, and they have only only organic wines. It's so beautiful because you can appreciate the diversity, you can appreciate the nature. You will not see kind of copy-paste sometimes style of wines, no? So you can see more the terroir, you can appreciate more the authentic touch of the winemaker. But I don't think that will grow this aspect of women only judging or men only judging. I truly believe, as in life, in balance. So it's a matter of trying to find the right balance in order to create complementarity. That's how I see it in terms of judging. It's beautiful. It's curious to see it. It's a very good way of doing marketing and communication. It's beautiful because they also encourage the women to enter in the wine industry and to come closer to the wine. But in terms of future, in terms of if it's a better result for a competition having only women instead of men, or vice versa, I don't think so. So,
right.
Yeah.
Certainly. Now, you mentioned there, Marinela, about how initially wines were marketed, and now there seems to be more of a sense of moral justice. Now, there's certainly not only a paradigm shift in the way that wines are being made and perception, but also reaching out and capturing the hearts and minds of people. And that is now coming in the form of social media. How has that changed for you in terms of reaching out and touching your audience?
I think that social media, it's an amazing tool, especially if we know how to use it and we know how important it is, especially how to use, because sometimes it's how we use the telephone. You can do great things with the telephone, but you can also lose your time by doing things that are not useful for you.
I know.
So social media can be a very, very useful tool. For me, it was very helpful, especially for the last 2 years when I was not being able to travel. And I think that was for at least every person, as a colleague, as I have in the wine industry, it was very useful. Personally and also professionally, because for both sides, I think that was useful. And it's a way of communicating to the community, but it's also a source of information, because also I got information from the social media, what the other producers are doing, what's new in the market. So it was a good way to stay in touch with the news in the field, in the wine industry, especially because lots of producers, they are paying more and more attention to the social media, to the Instagram, Facebook, a bit less to the Facebook, but more and more to the Instagram, LinkedIn, and even YouTube now, podcast, and so on. So I think that what the pandemic did accelerated very much the period that we are living. We are more connected since ever through the technology. And now we are just learning how to use on our best interest the social media. So for me, it was definitely useful. I learned how to manage more and to use better the social media, which was not my first priority before the pandemic.
Of course.
And I am more connected with the community. I can see what's the trend and what's their preferences. Very often, I also communicate directly through the direct message on Instagram or on LinkedIn and so on. So it's very helpful, definitely.
It's certainly on the rise, and I don't see it abating. Rather, I see it increasing. I mean, very recently, even on TikTok, we have the past President Obama's wife, Michelle Obama. She is now starting to give advice on TikTok. And it's very interesting to see that such a high-profile figure would use TikTok. So clearly what you've said is being followed by many others. Now, we did touch on wine judging a few moments ago, and I'd like to go back to that. Many people say that wine judging right now is rather rigid and perhaps suffocating innovation, because winemakers are now making wines to win medals, as opposed to making wines that are expressive of where they are from and an extension of their culture. It's just to win medals. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's even worse than that, because what you just said, I think that happened already with Robert Parker or with other wine critics very famous all over the world. But let me share with you an experience which I had 5-6 years ago. I was in Franciacorta. I was in north of Italy.
Pressure.
And yes. And I was judging the Franciacorta wines from the consortium.
Okay.
And I can tell you, Clinton, that almost, or at least the majority of the wines were tasting and smelling like Prosecco.
Ah.
Yes, because the Prosecco is famous. The Prosecco is successful. Even more 5 years ago, where it was like booming the trend,
That's true.
So everybody tried to make the wines as same as the one which, or at least as the same as a category, which were winning all over the world in terms of taste. So this is a very interesting example to take into consideration. On the other way, I think that we will always have winemakers and producers creating wines for the medals, as it happens also in school. Sometimes you can see students which are learning only for the vote and not for knowledge and not for learning, But I think that the future will encourage competitions, but also a way of creating wines which are having personality, authenticity, and you will be surprised, or the people who are watching us and listening to us will be surprised to not see medals on those wines, the ones which are standing for their authenticity or personality or some very special way of approaching from the wine market, the winemaker perspective. Because we have wines for competitions and we have wines to stand alone. I used to say that we have wines to be drink, and we have wines that are made to be, the star in a conversation. Mm-hmm. So everybody is kind of following the wine. And there are wines which are just completing and make even better the conversation or the dialogue through in a table. So it's such a difficult question for me, because very often the producer are asking me, what do you think? Should I send this wine to the competition, or to which competition should I send my wines?
Yes.
And I always say, why do you want to send the wine? Do you need the confirmation that your wine is good? Because I often hear that the producer, I want to see if I made a good wine. Then pick few experts who you trust and who you admire for their work, bring on the table, invite some bloggers, some people that are able to judge your wines and to give you an honest opinion. You do not need necessarily to send a wine in a competition for that. Okay, that's a way, but it's not probably the best way all the time. And on the other way, because a kind of label on the bottle might be easier to sell a wine on the shelves. That's probably one of the most often situation when the wines are in the competitions. And it's also because a producer won 30 medals and the neighbor said, well, I should send my wine as well to that competition. I want also the medals. And it's a fight on which producer has more medals in the market. So I always said, depends what you are looking for. For example, the Bundesvini, which is one of the biggest or one of the most important wine competition in the world. If you are in Germany as a market, you cannot miss that competition, especially for the wines on the shelves. There is one of the best, if not the best competition to be. If you want to send your to be judged your outstanding wine, you might need to find a different approach, because there it's not 100% sure that the people will have the time to attention and will be the right moment to appreciate that one bottle part of 300 bottles in total, because sometimes the personality wines that we were just talking about, they are in a very limited quantity there, so they do not need medals to sell the wine.
Right. That's absolutely true. I certainly hope that more and more winemakers will really be expressive of and true to what they want the drinker to know about. As we mentioned, it's the culture, it's the people, it's the geography. It's like the Georgian Cuvée wines, that is made in the old style. Many people unfortunately have not heard of it, let alone tried it. So when we talk about those type of wines, which are not sort of mainstream, mainstream wines, they think of Italy, they think of France and Spain and, South Africa, and certainly now up and coming is China. But how about, what is it that propelled you to promote and want to share Romanian wines? And why do you think it's important that people know about Romanian wines?
First of all, I must admit that I was born in Romania, so I also have...
Well, that's a good reason. That's the best reason.
But it's not the first reason. It's not the first reason, Clinton. I feel confident of doing that because I am very connected with the culture, values, history, and so on. So I have a connection with Romania. I definitely trust that in a few years, I don't know if 5, 10, or 20, the eastern part of Europe will be famous and well known globally for wines. And Romania has bigger potential for that because she's very connected commercially, economically with many other countries in the world. So it's so booming in terms of development, economically speaking for Romania. So the wine will come in a way natural. What I aim to do, and my mission is to support and to help the development of Romanian wine industry and also the country brand, because right now we are dealing with the country brand in Romania, because right now it's very difficult to find a wine which is not good. And this is not only Romania, but globally speaking. Right now, the wines are reaching a minimum level of quality. It's not a matter of quality now. Now it's a matter of standing out, being different, as we have in Chile, we have in South Africa, we have in Argentina, in terms of grapes, in terms of styles. So we are having, and we are working that on Romania, because, for example, Fetească Neagră, Black Maiden, which is the most, how to say, most well-known, the flagship of Romanian wine grapes. Right now, we do have 38 Romanian grapes in the country, but one, which is the Black Maiden, which is somehow between Pinot Noir, the elegance of Pinot Noir,
Mhm.
and the character, the joyful Syrah. So it's
Okay.
very versatile in terms of taste. It's very easy to be appreciated from by people from United States and an Asian market. So it's easy to be promoted because as a taste, it's very versatile. So right now we are dealing with creating a unique message, and the producer are starting also to learn how to approach a new market by not only being alone, but also creating community and going together, because only that way you can reach a new and big market, especially when we are going in different continents. So we are not staying in Europe. So we need to have more producers, more regions, more diversity. So all these are important elements.
Absolutely. I think before we've touched on some elements of education, and what APWASI has always maintained is that certain countries have not been covered well enough. I mean, I can say that APWASI created quite proudly the world's very first Wines of China program, and that has been very warmly and widely received. Now, on May the 5th, 2020, Marinela, you wrote an article, and it said, you need education in order to sell Romanian wines in Asia. So in
Yes.
your opinion, what are some of the best ways to educate the market on some of the new wines from Romania? Because this is our thinking. If there is no course or there's no education base, exporters, products are not known to the importers, the distributors, to the sommeliers, and finally the consumer. So how are you thinking in terms of Asia, which is a totally different culture, but the
These
world's
are
biggest market?
definitely the only thing that I see right now immediately in my mind coming is the communism that Romania used to have in the past, and they are still the mentality and the way of thinking. Sometimes I feel very close to the market.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my experience when I had I've studied in Chongqing in 2012. I was studying wine there and how to negotiate with the people there. So how to do the business in the Chinese market. So I think that first of all, as I said earlier, we need to have a coherent message about the country, or at least about the wine regions, to do not, I mean, especially when you're talking about Romanian wine and not
Yes.
a brand like Krug or like Moët Chandon, or a brand which is standing in the world. So we need to work in terms of country perception, and that would be very helpful to have this coherent message, which is approved by the majority. And also, the most important one was probably to do not forget that wine stands very easy near traditional food, art, culture, music. So it's much easier to put a sign in the heart and mind of people such far away from Romania. So doing an event where you can transfer also some values or some history, some culture, the people will never forget the taste of that event, not only the taste of that wine. So creating somehow connection, which are made not only through wine, but also some other elements. And of course, many events as possible. That's definitely important.
So Marinela, as you know, very recently, the Australian wine industry was hit with a 218% tariff of their wines coming into China. And from December to March 2020 to 2021, there was a sale of about only 12 million US dollars, as opposed to 325 million the same period the year before. Do you see this as an opportunity which would be there for Romanian wines to get into the market in China?
I would love to say yes, but I think that will mean to move fast, because that gap will be recovered very fast, in my opinion, in
Which
1
Chile
year, 2
is
years.
starting to take up very, very quickly.
Chile, Spain, other countries which they are working harder to be recognized, and they are some steps forward somehow. I personally don't see that Romania will be able to have a country brand as a voice, as a message, as a coherent message, as I just said, not before 2-3 years from now on. This is what's my realistic feeling. And in 2-3 years, I think that seeing how fast they are moving in China, and Asian market is a very, how to say, interesting market for many, many wine country producers. So with Romania, it's only one of it.
Right.
And we have producers in Romania which are working very well with China, with Japan, with producers which are having also the offices there. So we have some producers which are doing great there, but they are not known for the country, they are known for their brand, for the name of the producer.
And I think that's a really interesting perspective that you've put there. It's more the country. So, and I think in many ways, certainly for consumers, oh, it's a French wine. Oh, it's got to be good. And I think that's what you're alluding to. We want, oh, Romanian wine. Now, yes. Marinela, Romanian wine, we all hope it's going to move forward in a huge, positive, progressive, upward graph. But realistically, where do you see Romanian wine in a few years' time, say even within the window of 5 years? And I'm going to say this because not everyone is as talented as you with languages. Now, Romanian, just to pronounce the name of the grapes is already a challenge. And I know for students and people within the industry, not everyone puts Romanian language as the number 2 language from their mother tongue. Do you find, so where do you see it, and how much of an obstacle is the language itself when understanding?
I think that we are having more questions here, and definitely some answers. First of all, where do I see Romania in 3 years? I used to wrote on my first book of the Wine Book of Romania, which came out in 2016. On the back cover, I wrote there that the Romania in 10 years from now on will be on top 3 in Europe, together with France and Italy. I still look on that direction because I really believe that in terms of quality, in terms of diversity, in terms of investments, because lots of people from France, from Italy, from Austria, Germany, Spain are coming and investing in Romania. So if you consider that more than 50% of the capital together, money and human resources are coming from abroad, that means something. Mm-hmm. And also because of the climate change, because Romania is a country where you can produce wines in all the country, like in Italy. I don't know other country where you can produce grapes in every part of the country besides Italy, for example. Personally, I don't know. And this is very interesting to observe not only the trend of what's happening here in the country in terms of investments, results, and objectives, and people which are also business oriented, not only passion, so they have both, and knowledge, and lots of consultants coming from abroad, but also what the influence from climate changing. Yes. From climate change are coming. So lots of producers from Italy, for example, I'm seeing them coming and investing in Romania. Because I'm curious to taste a Merlot or a Cabernet Sauvignon in 5 years from now on. And even now, I could make a challenge. I could, how to say, launch a challenge to have, for example, Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot at the same table with the best, for example, Merlot or Cabernet from Italy or from France, because you will never guess that that might come from Romania. But it's an international grape, and we do not. I mean, we will need the native grape in order to make the difference, because always Italy or France will be better than Romania in terms of perception, because we have history between, and we can create curiosity. And I'm sure that people from the United States, especially, or the north of Europe, they will be curious to taste how is tasting a wine from Romania. And of course, only an expert probably will choose, let's see, a comparison between a Cabernet from, or a Pinot Noir from New Zealand and a Pinot Noir from Romania. A normal one will taste, I would like to see something local. I would like to see something that I do not find in my country.
Right. And talking about that, Marinela, so if we talk New Zealand, we think, oh, Sauvignon Blanc, Germany, Riesling. What grape do you think, if they should even champion a grape in Romania, which grape would that be?
For the international, I would say a grape which right now is not so enough considered in Romania, because most of the Romanians are drinking Sauvignon Blanc, which is an amazing grape, an amazing wine, but it's a bit boring for me.
Yeah.
And I think that Chardonnay can stand out. Mamma mia, I've tasted some organic Chardonnay in last year that I was so well impressed, but the people are not appreciating so much here Chardonnay or Pinot Grigio or some wines which abroad are much, much more appreciated. But in terms of reds, definitely Merlot and Cabernet for now. Right. But I think that in the future, Pinot Noir and Syrah, they will be more welcomed by the consumers in Romania, because right now, most of the Pinot Noir produced in Romania are going for the export. The people are not, how to say, they are not comfortable to drink Pinot Noir as they are not comfortable to drink Chardonnay, which are my both favorite grapes as international ones.
Personal favorites, true. But how about a Romanian grape varietal? Which one would you, if you were to say to our listeners, you should try this particular grape varietal, Romanian grape varietal?
You said something, Clinton, earlier, that is difficult to pronounce the Romanian grapes. And that's true. But we have a shortcut, and I'm using this occasion to share with your community. We have Black Maiden, White Maiden, Royal Maiden. So we have Fetească Neagră, Fetească Albă, Fetească Regală. So it's there. We have three grapes from the same, at least as a name, from the same family, which are easy to recognize, and the producers are pushing very much also for the international consumers, pushing because it's much easier to have it in mind. We have three from the same family, two are whites and one is the red one, the Black Maiden, the Fetească Neagră.
Okay.
And why are successful? And I'm sure that for the majority will be a successful key point, or at least for those who are not reaching the country personally, because when they're coming to the country, I can also suggest other grapes which are even more closer to Pinot Noir. For example, for you, I would suggest an easy to pronounce, a beautiful grape. But I don't know if we have more than 5 hectares in total, so we do not have enough.
Right.
So it's something very limited. And because Fetească Neagră, it's easy to produce in all the Romania, for sure it's easier to make of it a flagship, a Romanian flagship in terms of wine grapes. And
at this point, let me ask you. You're talking about grapes. You've written at least 5 books in total. Now, out of those 5, which one for you was the most memorable to write, and why was that?
Well, I will answer first in an honest way, and that will be the first one. The smell, the emotions that I had with the small one, with the first one, and the recognition from international public, it was something.
Professionals and industry.
It was awarded by OIV. It was awarded by Gourmet International. It was awarded by many competitions, and very, very well received by the wine lovers. Yes. It was published in Italy. I always written bilingual books. That was one of my I put here a goal to always share with a bigger audience as much as I can. But the first book, Clinton, I think it's like the first love. It will be always the most closer to my heart.
I think for most people, it's always the first. You know, whatever you do the very, very first time. It's so true. It's so true.
But otherwise, I would say the next one, because I love to set a goal and go for the next one. And I truly believe that the next one will be a combination in terms of experience of all five. In terms of,
Marinela, knowing you, I think every single book is special to you. It's passionate, and it brings a different view at a different time in life. It's an expression of you.
Clinton, what I did with the Wine Book of Romania, I created the first wine guide dedicated to Romania and Moldavian wines, bilingual. So I drove to each producer, I've tasted the wines, and I invited colleagues from all over the world to taste the wines and selecting the creme de la creme. So I did something outstanding for many wine countries, not only for Romania. So that one was something, yes, very impressive. But I said, the first one will be the first one, of course.
Of course. And your enthusiasm and your love really comes out. So for those of our listeners who are wanting to enter into the world of wine, what words of wisdom would you like to share with them of how they can take this journey, this adventure? What wisdom would you share with them?
First of all, if they are not already, to learn how to be curious, to be thirsty and hungry, to know, to discover, to learn, to visit wineries, to talk to the producers, to go to the wine shows, to the wine fairs. That is another way of enter in contact with wines, because the first way and one of the best to learn about wine is to taste. We have theory and we have practice. You need to have a bit of both. And when you are visiting a winery, when you are going to a wine show, there is a perfect combination of both. And the internet as well, it's a full source of information. So I think that we are so lucky to have today the internet, which is very close to each of us. It doesn't matter where we are located.
Well, I would like to really say thank you, Marinela, for such an insightful viewpoint of what's important to you, how you see the world and what's going on. It's just been an enormous pleasure, and we'd really like to thank you very much indeed. And so listeners, I would encourage you, if you are wanting to know more about Romanian wines, go out, get a copy of the book. Where can they buy your book, Marinela?
If those who are listening to us or who are watching us, if they are entering on my platform, marinelaardelean.com, all the informations are there, because the books can be found even in Amazon in all the continents, or they can use also the info on my platform, because I have more than 1,000 wines and more than 100 wineries, all for free for everybody who wants to learn a bit more about Romanian wine. So plenty of options on my platform, which is made by my name.
So once again, we'd like to just share here with you Marinela Ardelean, Romanian wine expert, consultant, and a true professional. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much, Marinela.
It was a great pleasure also for me, and good luck with all your projects. And let's have, a sparkling future nearby.
Thank you very much indeed. Wonderful.